Now, folks, you may wonder why Donald Trump keeps on saying, "I won the election." Well, the answer is simple. He did. And he knows this because he has been preparing for this massive voter fraud since at least 2018, when he signed his foreign interference executive order, which allows him to obtain evidence from overseas, in this case from seidl in Germany. And hat tip to Wal Gifford and Paul Delaney for pointing me to some of the stuff in today's video. Anyway, I'll start this off prior to the election.
We have in studio, which is always fun in studio, we have a friend of mine, and a longtime activist in Dallas, Texas. We have Russ Ramsland. He is joining us. Fortunately, it's great to have him in studio. He is the co-owner of Allied Security Operations Group and just a major committed patriot trying to work at making sure that the vote in America has integrity and truth to it. So, welcome to the show. Hi, Russ.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here as always. You know, it's a great day to be in the studio with you, Deb.
It is. It's a great day to be active in America. I'll remind our listeners, Russ visited me on this show on December 3rd, 2019. And at that time, laid out, and you can go back and find that show, laid out a very detailed description of a particular kind of interference with our elections, which had to do with the changing electronically the vote count inside voting machines. This is not ballot harvesting. This is not, having people vote who aren't allowed to. This is changing data after votes are made and being held and stored in electronic voting machine. And his organization uncovered a major proof of the interference with that and the ability and actual occurrence of changing electronic votes. So I was going to start with that. Can you explain, I know we're not going to play the whole video again, but can you explain what you all uncovered?
Sure. Basically, what most Americans don't understand is that voting is done by private companies. The elections are conducted by private companies under contract from the county. And we went in and started looking at these private companies and their software and their security. And we realized, first off, there are no security standards. So there are no national standards that any voting company needs to meet as far as the security on their software. And as a result of that, we then began to look and we realized how easy it is to change votes. The software is so bad you can easily change the audit trail so that later you cannot even forensically go back and find out the votes that were changed. And that led us to a number of areas. One, we said, well, what happens to your vote after whatever the voting company locally does to it? What happens to it? Well, it turns out in the case of Texas and 28 other states, it all goes to a server in Frankfurt, Germany, which is owned by Barcelona, Spain multinational, and that's who actually controls and reports your vote.
I got to jump in. So here in Texas, if you vote early, and so your vote is being stored, you think, safely somewhere, the data about all the votes in Texas and 27 other states, the early voting data is actually being held in a server in Germany.
That is correct. And not only that, but in their process and by a company called seidl.
Yeah, so they've known about seidl for a long time.
And in their process, we can even see malware sitting there collecting all the credentials of all the county workers everywhere who are submitting information up, which means you can now go back into the county and change votes there too. So you don't just change it in Frankfurt, you can go back and even change it here.
Yeah. Anyway, now to Sidney Powell and Eric Bolling.
Joining me now is best-selling author of the book License to Lie, former federal prosecutor and General Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell. Thank you for joining us. Counselor, tell us a little bit about the challenges that the Trump administration is facing, and what are your thoughts on whether or not they will be able to flip any states?
They're facing an election that was absolutely rigged. We are soaking in information through fire hoses of complicated mathematical alterations to the votes. We have identified the system capability that does it. It does, in fact, exist, regardless of what the name of it is. It works through the Dominion company's voting machines that were in 30 states and does indeed alter and flip voting results.
So can you tell me right there? I understand that. So there were these Dominion machines that were voting machines, and as you point out, they're in multiple counties across the country that may have changed. How do you know this? Do you have? Listen, I'm not pushing back on you because I know everyone's going crazy right now, but is there proof of that?
Yes. Well, the Dominion machines are in 30 states. We're identifying the companies that created the software. They have done this in other countries around the world. It's incredibly disturbing, and we will hopefully have evidence of it before the end of the week that we can produce publicly. And the Justice Department and the FBI and the intelligence agencies, I think, have known about this before. So why nothing's been done about it yet is beyond my comprehension, but it's fixing to go public because I'm not going to stand by and watch the American public be defrauded of their chosen leader in a free country that's supposed to be free, not run by Venezuela or China.
Cindy, very important information news you're breaking here. Is it a software glitch or something more nefarious?
It's a feature of the system that was designed with a backdoor so that people could watch in real time and calculate with an algorithm how many votes they needed to change to make the result they wanted to create.
How did you find out about this?
People have come to me with information. I think when people realize there's somebody they can trust that will actually do something about it, they speak up. We have a lot of patriots in this country. They are absolutely fed up to the gills with corruption at every level of government. They have no trust in our public institutions now, and we will not let this election be stolen or any cheating to survive.
So let me get this straight, and it's a real important point here. Dominion voting machines were in numerous states, numerous counties. There's some sort of software backdoor, not unlike most phones will have a backdoor, but this will actually calculate and tell the person accessing the backdoor what type of voting percentages and what type of numbers are needed to change the win for a certain party, for a certain candidate.
Exactly. They can watch the voting real time. They run a computer algorithm on it as needed to either flip votes, take votes out, or alter the votes to make a candidate win.
So that's different. Now this is even different. I just really want to be very, very careful here and be very meticulous about this. It's one thing to be able to watch it and decide how much more input you need to change the number. But now you're saying there's an actual way to change the total, the vote tallies within the system?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, anyway, now to some more background.
2,000 jurisdictions in 30 states. According to experts, if one site has a flaw, other sites are likely to as well, which is why Texas rejected using Dominion software 3 times, raising concerns that the system was not safe from fraudulent or unauthorized manipulation. That's troubling, given we already know that at least 2 software glitches in Georgia and Michigan occurred on election night. Attorney Sidney Powell is leading the charge against Dominion, and she says she has enough evidence of fraud to launch a massive criminal investigation. Sidney, thanks very much for being here. We appreciate your time this morning. I want to get right into it. We just heard about the software made by Smartmatic from Rudy, and I want to get your take on what you and I spoke about just a few minutes ago, and that is a gentleman named Peter Neffringer. Tell me how he fits into all of this.
Yes, well, he is listed as its former Admiral Peter Neffringer, or retired Admiral Peter Neffringer. He is president and on the board of directors of Smartmatic. And it just so happens he's on Mr. Biden's presidential transition team that's going to be non-existent because we're fixing to overturn the results of the election in multiple states. And President Trump won by not just hundreds of thousands of votes, but by millions of votes that were shifted by this software that was designed expressly for that purpose. We have sworn witness testimony of why the software was designed. It was designed to rig elections. He was fully briefed on it. He saw it happen in other countries. It was exported internationally for profit by the people that are behind Smartmatic and Dominion. They did this on purpose. It was calculated. They've done it before. We have evidence from 2016 in California. We have so much evidence, I feel like it's coming in through a fire hose.
Wow. So, Sydney, you feel that you will be able to prove this. Do you have the software in your possession? Do you have the hardware in your possession? How will you prove this, Sydney?
Well, I've got lots of ways to prove it, Maria, but I'm not going to tell on national TV what all we have. I just can't do that.
Okay, but you have a small time frame here. The elections are supposed to be certified in early December. Do you believe that you can present this to the courts and be successful within this just couple of weeks?
Well, let me put it this way. First of all, I never say anything I can't prove. Secondly, the evidence is coming in so fast, I can't even process it all. Millions of Americans have written, I would say by now. Definitely hundreds of thousands have stepped forward with their different experiences of voter fraud. But this is a massive election fraud, and I'm very concerned it involved not only Dominion and its Smartmatic software, but that the software essentially was used by other election machines also. It's the software that was the problem. Even their own manual explains how votes can be wiped away. They can it's like drag and drop Trump votes to a separate folder and then delete that folder. It's absolutely brazen how people bought this system and why they bought this system. In fact, every state that bought Dominion for sure should have a criminal investigation, or at least a serious investigation of the officers in the states who bought the software. We've even got evidence of some kickbacks, essentially.
Yeah, anyway, now to some more recent background.
News Now documents show that Dominion Voting Systems submitted a bid to the city of Philadelphia in 2018 to be considered as their contractor for voting machines. Those same documents reveal very little about the company's foreign connections. When asked by the city to list any foreign ownership or investors in either the parent company and or its subsidiaries, Dominion had something to say, but nothing to show. The section you see there on your screen is entirely redacted, blacked out, because Dominion ultimately was denied the contract. In just 3 months before Dominion's bid, President Trump signed an executive order against foreign interference in our elections. In that order, President Trump wrote, quote, "The assessment shall identify to the maximum extent ascertainable the nature of any foreign interference and any methods employed to execute it, the persons involved, and the foreign government or governments that authorized, directed, sponsored, or supported it. The Director of National Intelligence shall deliver this assessment and appropriate supporting information to the President."
Yeah, now, folks, I've made a copy of that executive order for you guys to read later, and I'll post it at the end of this clip.
The question is, was the president ever informed of this attempted bid by a company with foreign ties? And why are they being so secretive? Joining us now by phone, Sidney Powell, a member of President Trump's legal team. She is also General Michael Flynn's attorney, former federal prosecutor, best-selling author, one of the country's most prominent appellate attorneys. Sidney, good to have you with us. Dominion voting system seems to be figuring larger and larger in the interest of your legal team. And what is the latest?
Oh, definitely, Lou. I've just gotten some stunning evidence from a first-hand witness, a high-ranking military officer who was present when Smartmatic was designed in a way that and I'm going to just read you some of these statements, if you don't mind, so I get them exactly
Surely.
right. From from the affidavit, designed in a way that the system could change the vote of each voter without being detected. He wanted the software itself to function in such a manner that if the voter were to place their thumbprint or fingerprint on a scanner, then the thumbprint would be tied to a record of the voter's name and identity as having voted, but that voter would not be tracked to the changed vote. He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez. After the Smartmatic electoral management system was put in place, he closely observed several elections where the results were manipulated using the Smartmatic software. One such election was December 2006 when Chavez was running against Rosales. Chavez won with a landslide over Rosales, a margin of nearly 6 million votes for Chavez versus 3.7 million for Rosales. In 2013, he witnessed another Venezuelan national election where the Smartmatic management system was used to manipulate and change the results for Chavez. And it goes on and on. He was in the control room where multiple digital display screens were shown for results and voting. The actual voting results were fed into that room and onto the displays over an internet feed, which was connected to a sophisticated computer system created by Smartmatic. People in that room were able to see in real time whether the vote that came through the electronic voting system was in their favor or against them. If one looked at any particular screen, they could determine that the vote from any specific area or as a national total was going to be against either candidate. Persons controlling the vote tabulation computer had the ability to change the reporting of votes by moving votes from one candidate to another by using the Smartmatic software.
And Smartmatic, the relation...
Smartmatic.
Sydney, yes, and Smartmatic, the chairman is Admiral Pete Neffinger, who is also transition team. That's an extraordinary situation as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So here's the other kicker. When the Smartmatic machines when somebody's losing, like, for example, when Maduro and his supporters realized the size of the other guy's lead, they were worried that they were in crisis mode and would lose the election. The Smartmatic machines used for voting in each state were connected to the Internet, reported their information over the Internet to the Caracas Control Center real time, so the decision was made to reset the entire system. Maduro's and his supporters ordered the network controllers to take the Internet itself offline in practically all parts in Venezuela to change the results. It took the voting operators approximately 2 hours to make the adjustments in the vote from Radonsky to Maduro. Then when they turned the Internet back on and the online reporting was up and running again, they checked each screen state by state to be certain they could see each vote was changed in favor of Maduro.
Sydney, you tweeted earlier today about CIA and its association. What have you discovered there?
Well, other than the fact there's no way all this was happening around the world without the CIA knowing about it. I mean, that's just logic. This affidavit also explains it's been used to change election results all over the world. And it's all Venezuelan and Cuban and essentially communist money that's been doing this. It's a foreign-owned company, as you mentioned earlier. The president of it is Mr. Neffinger, who is on Biden's very presumptuous and immediately failing transition team. And people have been reporting this to our government for several years, including Democrats, and nobody's done a damn thing about it, Lou. I can't even express how furious I am over this.
Well, I share your fury and frustration, but I do have some news to break here at this moment. I have now received word from a highly reliable source that the FBI does have an investigative team that is now looking into this election.
No, Lou, the deep state FBI and CIA are not looking into anything. Anyway, now to the executive order. Yeah. Now, folks, that date is very significant because it shows that Trump was expecting this massive voter fraud from overseas, and they would have been watching seidl in Spain and in Germany from the beginning.
I might share one more thing. Sunday, I had information from some of our former intel people that there was extremely compelling evidence that could be gleaned from seidl, that's SCYTL. That's a company headquartered in Barcelona, Spain, that was responsible for aggregating all the information from all the machines and whatnot. But now the main headquarters had moved to Frankfurt. You know, Frankfurt, where Merkel in Germany has said the day after the election that Trump needed to go ahead and concede. Well, they're going through bankruptcy, but that information as to how many votes were switched from Republican for Democrat would have been easily established from the information that seidl gathered, and you know what were the votes going in and which ones were changed going out. And he said, can you send me exactly the information we need to gather? And so I got that information and sent it in the wee hours Monday morning. And before he would have had a chance to make a request to get any of that information, it turns out that I don't know the truth. I know that there was a German tweet in German saying that on Monday, U.S. Army forces went into seidl and grabbed their server. There's some.
Yeah, anyway, now to Howie Carr and Lynn Wood.
Lynn Wood, thanks for being with us again here on the Howie Carr Show.
Well, thanks for having me again, Howie.
Well, you know, first of all, I should ask you about there were reports that there's an quote-unquote emergency meeting of the White House legal team today at the White House. Do you know anything about this?
I do not. And let me say this for clarification. I don't represent President Trump, and I do not represent the Republican Party of Georgia or the National Republican Party. I have met with a number of individuals in the Republican Party. I've talked with some of their lawyers. I'm working in let's say, an unofficial capacity to try to help the president. So I'm working closely with Sidney Powell and with Mayor Giuliani. If they need me, I'm there for them. And I am aware of information. I met with Sidney yesterday all day, and I don't know the nature of the meeting, but I know that things are going to be rapidly developing over the course of the next few days, because the evidence of the computer voting fraud is mounting daily, which is a separate issue than the issue I raised when I filed my lawsuit against the Secretary of State here in Georgia. But at the end of the day, both issues are related, because both mechanisms, both the absentee ballots and the computer voting machines, constituted the fraud that was perpetrated upon the people of the United States of America.
So are you still confident? I've read your tweets today, but I just wanted you to be able to tell the American people, are you still as confident as you were last week?
The answer to that would be unequivocally yes. I was 100% confident last week, so I can't say I'm more confident, but just for the sake of trying to tell you where I am in terms of the information I'm aware of, let's just say I'm 105% confident this week.
So do you know anything about this raid that was supposedly conducted by the American military in Europe? Now, we originally heard they were, Louis Gohmert, the congressman from Texas, said he thought they were raiding a private company. Now we're hearing that they may have raided a CIA facility, that the CIA may have been involved in this. Do you know anything about this?
Well, I do know some things about it, but there's some conflicting information. What I think is accurate is that the raid was conducted on a seidl facility. seidl, that's capital SCYTL, and it may have related to servers that are stored at that facility. I don't know whether the good guys got that information or the bad guys, so I'm not in a position to say, but I do believe that the servers that were located there would contain significant information that would prove in some of the elements of the fraud that was conducted, which seidl was part of.
Do you think Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani have the smoking gun, for lack of a better term, that's going to get these results turned around?
To be accurate, I'll say I'm confident they have the smoking guns. So I'm saying it in the plural. I've seen sworn affidavits. I've seen sworn video statements. I think that Sidney and Rudy have done a magnificent job in a short period of time of piecing together a solid legal case on what was intended to be a complicated scheme of fraud as it relates to the voting machines. But when you boil it down, it simply amounts to the fact that the United States of America was relying on voting machines that were subject to manipulation. We might want to go back to the days where we fill in a hand ballot, sign it, let people count it. Because when you open the door to these types of computers, you're opening the door for people to manipulate, to hack, and to defraud people. And that's exactly what was done here. There's no doubt in my mind about it. It started in Venezuela. It connects into Cuba. It connects into Frankfurt, Germany, where servers were stored, in Barcelona. And it tracks back ultimately to a company known as SGO Smartmatic.
Yeah, now, folks, whether the deep state CIA got the server first or not is irrelevant. I would say Trump's team would have it by now.